Hello everyone, welcome to this explanation video where I'm going to explain to you an e-commerce project, Django Web Sale. So this is a full stack e-commerce project which uses Django REST framework for backend and React.js for frontend. So this is a multi-vendor e-commerce project which is used to buy or sell our code snippets or entire code. So in this project we have multiple modules like shop, blog, dashboard, etc. So in the shop module, you can see all the products and you can see we have categorized all our products based on the technology that they use. And in dashboard, you are able to see all the details related to your account. So now let's move on to the setup of this project. So now I'll show you how to set up the Django Web Sale project. So for that, here we have the project folder. So we go inside this folder, we'll find two other folders. One is the project source code, the other one is the environment folder. So in the source code folder, we go to the folder and we open this folder in VS Code. So once this folder is open, the first thing we have to do is we have to activate the environment. So for that, we have to run the following commands. We go to the parent directory and run this command. So with this command, now our environment is active. You can see that because of the environment name is mentioned here. And now we go back to our project directory. So we use this command. And now what we have to do is we have to install all the dependencies of this project. So all the dependencies for this project have already been mentioned in a requirements.txt file that you'll find in the source code folder. So we only have to install all the dependencies from this file. For that, we have to run the command as this pip install -r and then our file's name. So once we run this command, then all the dependencies will be installed on the local system. So you can see all the dependencies are already satisfied on my local host, but in your system it might take a bit longer than this because it will have to install everything. So now our project is set up. To verify that project is running properly, we run the following command: python manage.py run server. Sorry, there is a spelling mistake. It might take a bit time. So ignore the warnings for now. We can see our server is running at this port, 8000 port. So we go to this port and yeah, so our site is running on 8000 port. Because there is no data present on the local host right now, so that's why it's looking a bit different right now. So for this tutorial purpose, we'll be using the actual deployed site, which is this one. So yeah, that is how you set up the Django Web Sale project. Now let's dive into the project specifications. Hi, so now we'll dive a bit deeper into the source code of our project. So we'll take a look at all the applications that we have in our project. So here we have an accounts application, an ecom application, front-end application, and a pages application. So we'll take the overview of each of these applications. So first we have account application. This application is dedicated to handling the functionalities such as authentication, registration, signing in a user, signing out a user, and resetting the details of a user profile or even user password. Then we have ecom application. This application handles all the functionality related to our shop. So it handles tasks such as displaying all the products, displaying all the categories, showing the products to the user, and if a user wants to buy a product, then it has functionality of adding it to cart, payment of the particular product, and stuff like that. And then we have a front-end application. Front-end application handles all the front-end functionality of the project. So it has all the static files and all the assets required by React.js. Since I've told you, the front end is being handled by React.js. So this front end application is dedicated to that part of the project. Then we have pages application. This pages application is solely dedicated to redirecting and returning responses for any particular request that is hit to the project. So it handles requests such as login, sign up, dashboard of a user, and for each of these requests it returns a web page or a HTTP response. Hi, so now we'll take a look at how our project handles a single request. So here we are at the home page of our project, and we'll just hit a simple request to our project, which is a simple slash, and we hit enter. We now, after that request is processed, we see this page. So now let's take a look at how this request is handled at the backend. So initially, when the request is sent to the project, it comes to the urls.py of our backend application. So here the request is matched with each of these URL patterns. So here we see that empty request matches with this URL pattern. So here we are redirected to URLs of our pages application. So we go to the URLs of our pages application and match again. So here we see the first URL pattern is an empty request which matches our current request. So that is handled by the index method of our views file. So we go to this method and we see it just returns a simple base ecom.html page. So when we go to this HTML page, we'll see that the body of this HTML page is labeled root for its ID. So this root ID is important for React.js as it is used by React.js to identify our single page applications. So now we go to our front end application to see how the rest of the components are exported to this page. So in our front end application, in an src folder, we see app.js, which does a second layer of routing for our project. So here we see a bunch of URL patterns are defined as well. So we'll identify the request that we have sent, which is here. It is a simple slash, and according to this URL pattern, this route, we can see that this simple slash returns a component home. So we'll take a look at this component. So in our src project itself, we'll see another folder called ecom, and in that folder we have pages. So in our pages we can see a home.js. We go to this home.js and we can see this is what is returned for our request. So we can see all the components that are returned by this request, which is a slider and product, and finally this returned value is shown on our web page. So this is how a simple request is handled in our project. Hi, so now we'll take a detailed look into the pages module of our project. So we'll first see all the URLs pattern that are handled in this module. So as I've already told you, most of the requests are handled by this module. So here we can see we have about, contact, sign up, login, and all these requests that are handled in this module. So for example, we'll take a look at the about request. So if we go to its view, then this is a function based view that is handling the about request. So similar to the index request, similar to the blank request that we saw, which was being handled by this index view, about view and rest of the other views are also being handled in a similar way, such that they are returning a single HTML page which is base.ecom, and inside this page the components that are to be exported for a certain request are decided by the front end. Now this decision is taken in the app.js routing file of our project. So for example, for our about request, we have this about request and it will export this about component from our project. So if you take a look at this about component, here we have the definition of these. All this data will be shown to us once we hit the about request from our project. So in the same way, the rest of the views in our pages module are being handled. Thank you. Hi, so now we'll take a look at the register functionality of a project. This functionality is handled inside the accounts module of our project. So let's have a look. First, we go to the register endpoint of our project. We see this page. This page currently is being handled by the pages module just to show up this form that we're seeing here. And once we input our data and hit submit, then a request is sent to the accounts module. So let's go into the URLs. So in account modules URLs file, we see a registration pattern. So this pattern is being handled by this registration view. So let's go to this registration view. So here we see this registration view. In this view, we have defined a post method. So whenever the data is being sent from the front end, will be returned in this post method. So here we have defined a serializer class as instance. So let's take a look at this registration serializer. So here we have this registration serializer. What this serializer works on is the user model. So we can see the fields that this serializer takes. We have added some extra fields like email, username and confirm password for the validation purpose of our registration user. And also in the serializer we can see the validate and create method. We'll get back to these methods in a bit. So yeah, we create an instance of the serializer class with the data that has been received from the front end, and then we check if the serializer is valid or not. The way that is checked is using this validate method in our serializer class. So first we take the password and the confirm password inputs from the data that we have received, and we assert that both of these passwords are correct. If they are correct, then then attributes are returned. Otherwise, it raises an exception. Confirm password doesn't match. So this validation has been put in place and is asserted here using this is valid method. And once the serializer data is validated, then we come to the block of this code and we see serializer.save. So let's go back to the create method. So once the serializer.save method is called, this create method will be executed in our serializer class. So here we see a new object, a new instance of this user model is being created and all the data is being passed to it, and then a new password is being set, and then that user is returned. So here the same thing is happening. We are receiving a new user from this serializer class. Now what we have to do is we have to generate access tokens for this user. So we'll do this using this get token for user method. So here we are simply using refresh token for user and we are passing the user that has been created, and then we return these tokens as a dictionary. So now we have received the token for this current user. We return this token along with a message registration has been successfully done. And then in case the serializer is not valid, then we return whatever error has been received in the serializer, and the status code is 400. So this is how registration functionality is working in our project. Hi everyone, now we'll take a look at the sign-in functionality of our project. So here we are at the home page of our project. We click on this sign-in button on the top right corner and we are shown this form on our web page. So we enter the data, our user number and password, and then we hit submit. So when we hit submit, the data is passed to a URL in our accounts module. So that URL is login. So this URL is handled using login view. So let's have a look at this view. So here is our login view. When we pass the data to this URL, the data is sent to this view using post method. In this method, we have instantiated a serializer class, login serializer, with the data that we have received from the request. So let's take a look at this serializer class. So here is our serializer class. It uses the user model and the fields it takes is username and password. So we have the serializer with the data we received, and we check if the serializer is valid. In case it's valid, we try to log in the user with the data that we have received. So we use the authenticate method from Django to do that, and we receive the authenticated user. Now, in case all our data is correct and present in the database, we'll receive a user from this authenticate method. So if we have received a user from this method, then we'll require the access tokens from this user. So for that, we use the get tokens for user for method for this particular user. Now we have the tokens. We return that token along with the success method of 200 HTTP OK. Now, in case the user does not exist for the data that we have received from our frontend, then what will happen? This user will not contain any value. So in that case, we return an error message back to the frontend that username or password is not valid, and 404 is the status code. Now, in case the serializer itself is not validated, in some error occurs in that, then again we send the whatever errors have been encountered in the serializer along with the 400 bad request method status code. So this is how our login functionality is working in this project. Hi, so now we'll take a look at the password reset functionality in our project. So here you can see I'm logged in as a user to our website. We are at the home page right now. So there are two ways to reset our password for any account. Firstly, we can just change our password if we remember what the old password was. So we'll just have to log into the project, go to our dashboard, and we see a change password button here. So we go to this change password, we can enter our new password. So let me just add a new password. And when we click submit, then this request goes to our project in the accounts module. In the accounts module, you'll see in urls.py there is a change password endpoint. So that is where the request will be received, and this endpoint is being handled by our view, user change password view. So here we see a post method. In this post method, we have initialized a serializer, change password serializer. So this serializer takes data from the request data, and the context is passed to it, which just has the user as the request user. So now let's take a look at this serializer. So here is our serializer. It takes in two data values, a password and a confirm password. So and then we have defined a validate method. So in this validate method, we take in the password and the confirm password values, and we take in the user that we have passed with the context. And then we assert that the password and confirm password values are equal. If they are not equal, then an error is thrown by the serializer that password doesn't match. And if they are same, then the new user password is set and the attributes from the serializer is returned back. So let's come back to our view. So here we are asserting the serializer is valid, so that will run the validate method of our serializer, and then it will return the response from the serializer that password change has been successful and the status code is 200. So this is how we change our password from our dashboard. Now in case we have forgotten our account's password, so we'll have to reset our password. So let's see how that works. So first we'll have to log out, and now we go to sign in, and we see we have our data here, but in case we don't know our password, then we have a functionality of forgot password. So we click on this link and it will ask for our email. So we just enter our email here, and then a request will be sent to our project in the accounts module, which is here. So this is the send reset password email, which will handle the request sent for password reset, and it is handled by send reset email view. So let's take a look at this view. So here is our view. It has a post method defined. So in this method as well, we are initializing a serializer, send password reset email serializer, and we are sending the data that we have received from the request, and then we are checking if the serializer is valid or not. So let's take a look at the serializer. So here is our serializer. It takes in one value, email. So here we have gotten the email from our attributes, and now we check if any user in our project exists which has this current email. So we'll do this while looking up our Django database. And if the user is found, then what we'll do? We'll create a UID for our user, which is an encoded value of the user's ID, and we'll generate a password reset token for this user. So for that we are using password reset token generator, which is a functionality inbuilt in Django, and then we'll generate a link where the user can go to reset their password. So this is our hard-coded link for now. In the actual deployed project it will be a bit different. So in that link we are appending the UID and the token that we have generated. Now we send this link to the user with the given email so that they can reset their password. In case the mail could not be sent, then this link will be shown on the console itself. Now, in case the email received for this serializer does not have any user attached to it, then this serializer will give an error: you are not a registered user. So let's go back to our view. So here we are asserting that the serializer is valid or not. So this will execute the validate method of our serializer. And once the serializer is validated, then a response will be returned to the front end that password reset link has been sent to email, and the status code will be 200. Now once our mail is sent and user has clicked on the link for password reset and entered the data for the new password, then that request will be sent to again our accounts module. So let's look at the URLs which will be handled. So this reset password URL will handle that request, and you can see it also takes the UID and the token. So this URL is being handled by this view. Let's take a look at this view. So user password reset view is handling that request. So here we have the post method defined. Again, it's using a serializer, and the data that is passed to the serializer is from the request, and we are also passing the context, UID and token. So all this data will be passed to our serializer. Let's take a look at the serializer. So here is our serializer. It takes in two data values, password and confirm password. And here is our validate method. So first of all, we'll get the password and the confirm password that the user has entered from the front end, and we take in UID and token that we have received from the URL of the request. Now we assert that both the passwords match, and if they don't, then we return an error: the password do not match. Now in case the passwords match, then what we have to do is we have to extract the user for which this password reset request has been generated. So for that, what we do, we use the URL decode method from Django itself, and we pass in the UID that we have received in the request. And for this ID, we extract the user from our database. And now we assert that the token that we have received in the request is valid or not. So for that, we use a method from Django, and we pass in the user and we pass in the token, and we assert that the token is valid. In case the token is not valid, we return an error: token is not valid or it has been expired. And if the token is valid, then the user's password is again updated, the user data is saved to the database, and the attributes are returned. So this is how our password reset functionality is working in this project. Hi, so now we'll take a look at the shopping functionality of our project. So as mentioned, most of our shopping functionality in the project is being handled by the ecom module in our project. So let's have a look. Here we have at the front page of our project, and we see a bunch of data presented to us right away. So first we can see this big image, which is the home slider, and then these 4 images, and we have all the categories that are present in our project. So let's see how this data is being presented to us. So here we are in our code. So we'll go to the urls.py of our ecom module. We see the first URL path is home slider. This home slider path is the API that is called to present us with this big image that we see on front end. So let's take a look at this view. Here we see we are returning the last object of our home slider model. This home slider model contains the data for this image. Now in a similar way, for these 4 images, we are calling this API home4 API from our ecom module, and it is being handled by this view. So we are in our home4 view, and this view returns the last 4 objects of our home4 model. So these home4 model is the model that contains the data for these images, and it is returned as a response to our API. Now for the categories, which is shown here, and if we scroll a bit down, then our categories are shown here as well. So for these categories, the data is sent to us using this API, this category API. So let's take a look at the view. So here's our view. Here we can see we are taking all the category data objects from our category model, and we are returning that to our as a response. So this response is rendered to us in our web page. So if we scroll a bit further down, we can see we have the products in our project. So let's see how this data is sent to us. So again, we come to the URLs of our project. We can see we have an endpoint product which is handled by this view. So this endpoint is responsible for giving us the data of the products in our home page. So let's take a look at the view. Here again, we can see we are taking all the records in our product model and we are sorting them by negative ID, which will just show us the latest ones first. So this data is sent to us as the response and then rendered on the front end. Now suppose if we wanted to see the details of any particular product, suppose for this one, so we click on this product and see how the URL changes. So now we are in ecom/product/the slug of any particular product. So let's take a look at the URL for this. So this endpoint is handled by this product slug. So this endpoint is called by the API from our React.js. So let's take a look at the view. So here we are in the view. We take the slug which is present here. You see this is the slug for our product. So we take the slug from our request and we extract whatever product is associated with this slug, and we take all the reviews that are given for this particular product and we put it in a JSON format. We serialize the data of the product and we send all this data back as a response. So now we have our data. It is rendered to us using React. Now suppose if we were to hit this endpoint directly through the URL, then again we see the same data, but in this case the request is being handled with this URL. So this URL also gives us the same data. Let's take a look at the view. So here we can see it's just returning us the base ecom HTML page, and again this HTML page will call this API, this API that we have already seen. This API will be called by React, and then again we'll receive the data of our product and the reviews associated with it. Now as we see, we have a lot of products in our project here. So suppose we wanted to do some filtering on these products according to our needs. So we go to the shop module and here we see all the products, and suppose we wanted to filter our products by their price. So here we have a filter by price filter. So suppose I wanted to see all the products that are under 500. So here our data is filtered. So let's take a look at how this filtering is working in our project. So here we come to our urls.py file and we see an endpoint price filter. So this price filter API is called whenever we filter our data. So let's take a look at the view. This is our view, and here we see it's handling a post request. So whenever we get a hit on this endpoint, we take the data of the request and we filter all our products whose price lies in the range of 0 and the price that has been mentioned, and we serialize the data and we return the data as the response. Now in a similar way, if we wanted to filter our products by category, suppose these are all categories and we wanted to see all the Python products, then again we can use this category filter. It's not showing any products in this category. Let's try something else. Yeah, So we have all these products in our category. So let's see how this is working. So for filtering by category, that functionality is handled by this view. So this API is being called by React from the front end. Let's take a look at the view. So here's our view. We take the category name that has been passed with the API, and we filter all our products which belong to the category that has been given to us. We serialize the data and we return the data back to the front end. And in this way, the data, all this product is shown to us according to their category. So this is how all the functionality is working in a project for shopping module. Hi, so now we'll take a look at how the payment functionality in our project is working. So suppose we scroll down to the products and we see a product that we like and we wish to buy this product. So suppose this is the product. So first of all, we click to add to cart button. So here we click it and it says successfully added this to cart. So let's take a look at how this is working in the backend. So again, in our ecom module, in our urls.py file, whenever we click on the add to cart button, this API, this endpoint is called with the React.js. So let's take a look at the view for this API. So for adding to cart functionality, the post method is used for API. So in this post method, we are getting the user and we are getting the product that we wish to add to cart, and we check if this product is already present in this cart. So since we are adding this product for the first time, we'll pass in the API hint as first cart. So first we have extracted the product from our cart where the user is the request user and the product is the product that we have passed. Now if this product is none, that is this product is not already present in our cart, then what happens, we take all the data from the API that we have passed. So we take the user and we take the product ID, the quantity is set as 1 and the price is whatever the price is our product, and we pass all this data to our cart serializer. So let's take a look at the serializer. So here is our cart serializer. It takes in all these values like product image, title, slug, short title and all that. And the model that this serializer works on is the cart model. So we create an instance of this serializer with the data that we have received in our view, and if this data is valid, then we save the serializer and then we return a response that this cart has been successfully added this item to the cart and the status code is 200. Now in case this cart is not null, that is the product was already present in our cart, then a message is shown already added. So this is how add to cart functionality is working. Now suppose we have added this product to our cart and we wish to see all the products in our cart. So we go to dashboard and click on my cart. So we'll see this is the product that we have added to our cart. So let's see how this is working in the backend. So initially when we hit this request, then the API that is called is my cart view. So let's take a look at this view. So here we see it's just returning one single HTML page, and inside this HTML page another API will be called to get the data of all our cart items. So that API is actually the API that we have already seen, which is this one, cart API, cart endpoint, which is handled with this cart view. So in this time, when we are trying to see all the products that are present in our cart, the API will be hit with the method of get. So let's take a look at get method. So here we are taking the user that is currently logged in and we are getting all the items that are present in this user's cart, and we are serializing that data with the cart serializer that we have already seen, and we are returning the data as the response. So in this way we can see all the products that are present in our cart. So now we wish to buy these products from our cart, so we'll click on proceed to checkout button. So here we can see we are on checkout URL and we are shown a form. Now this form will take all the details that are required for placing our order, such as our details, company name, address, city, etc. So let me just fill in this detail. I'm putting in any value for now. Actually, I'll have to. So I've put in all the details, and for payment method I'll select pay online. So this is our invoice, these are all the products and our total order pricing. So let's click on place order. So once you click on this place order, then this billing API will be called. So let's take a look at this billing API. So here's the view for our billing API. The method that this billing API will be called with is the post method. So let me just click on place order. So all that data has been passed to our billing view. So let's take a look into this view. So here we are taking the user that has requested this payment, and we are passing all the data that we have received in a customer serializer. So let's take a look into this serializer. So here it's working on the customer model and it's taking in all the fields. So all this data is passed to us through the API, and if this serializer is valid, then a customer is created. Now, since our payment mode is not cash, so this block of code will be executed. So let's have a look. So first we're putting amount as 0 and shipping amount we've put as 0 for now. Now we'll take the card product of all the card products for our current user, which is the logged in user. So, and our product price is currently empty. Now we go through all the products in our cart, and for each product we update the amount for our cart as well as the product price list. Now finally we create an order through Razorpay client, in which we are passing the amount, the currency and the payment capture. So this Razorpay client has been defined already. Let me just show you. So this is a Razorpay client. It is using the Razorpay API. So that is why you can see this new form has opened as soon as we clicked on place order. So let's go back to our code for now. So here a new order is created and the data is returned as a JSON response. So this is our order, and now suppose we make our payment. So we'll go to net banking, and a bank you can select. So currently, since this is in testing mode, so it's asking if we want to proceed with our payment or if we want to fail our payment. So we'll click on success to proceed with our payment. So as soon as our payment is processed, a new URL is called in our ecom module, which is this URL. This payment API is called with React.js as soon as the payment goes through. So let's take a look at this URL. So this is the view for our URL. The method is post. So as soon as our payment is done, these parameters are sent to us by Razorpay client. So we extract all these data from our Razorpay result, and then using the Razorpay client we verify that the payment that has been processed by the user is actually successful or not. So if the result is successful, then what we do? In case the result is not successful, then this method throws an error. So that way we can know if the payment has been processed or not. But since it is not throwing an error and we have already seen this page, so we know that the method has the payment has gone through. So now we move on and we save the order details. So here we can say we can see we are using the payment model. We are storing our user and our Razorpay credentials and the amount that was for this order. We are making a record of this payment model and we are saving that model. Now what we want to do is we want to clear the cart of this user, because we don't want the items that have already been bought. So for each item in our cart, we are creating a new order with that user, this product, and all the other details for that order, and then we are deleting that item from the cart, and then we are returning a message to the front end that order is successful. So this is how our payment is working in this project.